Pump it up, pump it up.
Trae.
Come on, come on.
With Trae.
Pump it up, pump it up.
It's the day with Trae.
This is the day to gain inspiration, to make a positive change in the nation. We're inviting you to partake in conversation to raise your vibration. It's the day that we will all celebrate all of our peeps that make this thing elevate. Watch the negative fade away, cause it's the day with Trae.
Grand Rising, everyone. Welcome to the Day with Trae. I'm your host, Trae Holiday. I want to welcome you to a magnificent Monday. This whole week is jam-packed, and I'm so excited. I get to start my week with my buddy, managing editor at Circling Seattle Sports, Chuck Hamaker, is back in the building with me. We're going to be talking all things sports because, you know, I got to get the latest. And, of course, we got to hear more about his time at the Mariners Spring Training Camp. So I'm glad he's here. And then later on in the show, I get the opportunity and the pleasure to talk to Miss Alicia Crank, the executive director at CityClub Seattle. We're going to be talking to her about their work and also her take on sports, as she's a huge sports fan, and you can probably find her at almost any Kraken game. So I'm so excited to have them both joining me to kick this week off. But of course, as you know, it is the top of the show, so it's a perfect time to tag and share this stream. Go ahead and participate, y'all. Share this stream with folks who you feel could benefit from a daily dose of dopeness right here on The Day with Trae. And if you can't watch our TV show, we still have you covered because you can listen to us anywhere you find your favorite podcast. Just search Converge Media Network in The Day with Trae. You'll find me on whichever platform is your favorite. Well, y'all know I'm excited to get this week kicked off. So up next, we got Chuck Hamaker in the building, managing editor of Circling Seattle Sports right here on Converge Media. What's up, Chuck?
It's great to be back with you, Trae. I traded the sun in to come back here to Seattle, but great to be here with you and to go over what we saw at spring training.
Yeah, well, this is exciting too because you have really gotten yourself into all of these amazing places to be able to cover what's going on in the sports arena for Seattle. Tell us more about your time there.
Well, it was really interesting to, go down there and see what's going on. Usually spring training, is the time for folks to fight for their spot, right? It's the young guys gunning for some of the veterans and stuff like that. But this year's Mariners group's pretty set. There's not a lot of that. It's more so seeing some of these veterans come in and what they can bring to this group, right? They missed the playoffs by a year last year. They made it 2 years ago. That was historic. So you're trying to get back, right? Every sport, playoffs is such a big thing. And we saw a few different things. We've got some photos from our friend Liv Lyons was down there. Me and Liv, it's kind of like our version of the dream team, right? You think about that old U.S. men's basketball. That's our version of the dream team. At least here we're Circling Seattle Sports and Converge. We came in, the Mariners had an off day one of the days, and we were like, oh shoot, no one's going to be around. But the young Mariners pitcher, George Kirby, was out working. He's kind of an interesting guy. He likes dubstep. He kind of keeps to himself. He keeps to himself, but sometimes he lets this other ego out. But he was working away. We saw him. There was young Mariners catcher Harry Ford. We were talking about it a little bit before, but he was part of Great Britain with the last World Baseball Classic. So it's like the Baseball World Cup. He's part of Great Britain. We saw a few of the guys as well. The next day they had a game. Julio Rodriguez, everybody loves Julio. He's the face of the Mariners. J.P. Crawford, everybody loves J.P. So they're essentially the team captain. So that's a little bit of what we saw. Some of the younger guys as well who will dominate for years to come, and some of the veterans like JP.
Well, for some of us who don't know, I mean, you were just talking about trading in the sun. Tell us more about where spring training camp happens and, how long it's been there or, things like that. Because some of us don't know, including myself, Chuck.
No, so every spring training, which starts around February, they start to come down to Peoria, Arizona. So if you've ever been out in Arizona, all of the cities are kind of in this main sector. There's Glendale, there's Surprise, there's Goodyear. It's called the Cactus League. So half of baseball goes there, half of them goes to Florida, called the Grapefruit League. The Mariners are in the Cactus League. They go down to Peoria. They actually share a complex with the Padres. So it's funny, whenever those two teams play, one of them is the home team, but they both kind of own the facility. But they've got their facility there. They've got their actual stadium of Peoria Sports Complex, but then they got a lot of back lots. They're just baseball fields everywhere. It's like baseball heaven in a lot of regards. You got the sun. It was nice when we went down there, but it wasn't too hot. Nice 75. I didn't burn, which was nice. But yeah, Peoria, Arizona, they've been there for as long as I can remember, at least a few decades. They go down there from February to just about the end of the month of March, and then they've got opening day here on the 28th of March. So yeah, Peoria every year down in Arizona, get some sun. It's nice for them because you know how it is around here, especially earlier months of the year. But down in Peoria, Arizona, the Cactus League.
Well, right on. You know, this is something for me where you've done a lot of research. I mean, clearly, this is beyond being a fan. Tell us about that crossover from, you know, loving sports to then really capturing sports in the ways that you have, because it takes a different type of mindset to be able to now capture all that's going on and share it out with the people.
Well, I like that you mentioned that because it applies especially to spring training, right? Because, you know, when you get to the regular season, you're looking at wins and losses. That's what matters, right? It's who's winning, you know, like I mentioned with the playoffs. But spring training, it's different. You don't really look at a spring training game and if they lost, it's like, it's not the end of the world. It's kind of who's getting better. It's like you're in the gym, right? You're getting there to work out. You're not really worried about too much besides making sure you're getting better, you're getting stronger, that sort of thing. So that's kind of what it is a proving ground for some of these young guys to show the big leaguers, hey, I belong here, right? Or maybe they steal someone's spot, right? Or if you're some of these veteran guys, a lot of the guys that they brought in this offseason, Mitch Garver hits the ball really well. He's shown that off this spring training. We talked to him as well in the clubhouse, so it's just audio. I can't show you no video, unfortunately. Harry Ford's the guy who will probably be at the big league level in a few years. It's showing him he's learning from guys at the big league level, but also improving his own game. So that's kind of what spring training is about, because for some fans, it's just, I want to see the wins and the losses. But spring training is very different. You're not really looking at if they're winning right now. It's who's growing, who's improving, and maybe who's showing out.
Well, you're really looking at skill set then, which I can appreciate, because oftentimes when we're in the thick of a season, as you said, we're focusing on how the skills are showing up on the winning team. I mean, and then we're also looking at, okay, what are they missing and why did they lose? So there's all these analytics that are happening for a lot of fans. And I think too that there is a growing interest now that the betting is legal. I mean, you and I haven't even talked about this, but I got to get your take on this, Chuck, because you know, it's kind of, I think, drawn more people to sports betting now that it's out and open, it's legal, and they have a whole mechanism for doing so. Tell us a little bit of your take on that.
It's interesting, Trae. You hit me with this hard one there, because it's a unique aspect, because there's more to look at, right, with the numbers. Maybe if you bet that JP has to get 3 hits tonight, and he's got 2, and he's coming up, and you really need him to get another one. So you got extra incentive to worry about different things throughout the game and maybe be more invested for longer or more games. So I like that aspect of it, that you bring in more people. Maybe it's folks who don't necessarily watch a certain sport, but they're a betting person. They want to try something out, and then maybe they pay attention. So in that regard, sure, absolutely. I just know, with gambling, it's tough. With betting, you got to be responsible. Right, and then there's some fans who maybe they didn't hit their parlay, and now, the bad part of it is they go and they text, oh, you didn't get that 3rd hit, you saw, like stuff like that, not so much. But the aspect of bringing in fans and keeping them more engaged, I think that's healthy, and as long as you manage it, it's all right. It's very interesting though. It's polarizing, I'd say, the whole betting with sports now. But like you said, it's legal, and I mean, if it's legal, I mean, there's pros and cons, but it's interesting is what I'll say.
Well, I think I really appreciate your take on it too, because, for someone like myself, it's not just about the wins and losses, as you said. It gets down into the mechanisms of the game, and that is where there's more analytics happening. But again, you got more people that are gritting their teeth on one end. So I really appreciate that perspective. Of course, it's always great to have you here, Chuck, and folks out there need to tap in with Circling Seattle Sports. Let them know how they do so.
Well, gracious as always to have Trae bring me on, but Circling Seattle Sports are doing a lot. You might have seen we've rebranded. We've got this new shiny logo. Well, I'm sure, actually, got a sticker of it there, so you've kind of got it. We've got the new logo, so it's nice. It looks a lot better than just the plain logos we had. But at Circling Seattle Sports on every platform, whether it's Twitter at Circling Sports, Instagram at Circling Seattle Sports, YouTube as well. We're getting into the busy part of the spring where soccer's back, the Storm are about to be back, the Kraken are still going, as you can see. So at Circling Seattle Sports on all your platforms, everything around the city of Seattle, we're there. And again, grateful to have you bring me on.
Chuck, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to have you here. Anytime.
Oh, thank you, Trae. Goodness, thank you.
Oh, y'all, always a great time talking with my buddy Chuck, and I get to continue this great time with up next, Miss Alicia Crank, the Executive Director of CityClub Seattle. We're going to be diving into her take on their work and also how she's staying tuned into the sports world. Y'all don't want to miss this. Stay tuned. You're watching The Day with Trae.
Hello, welcome to Elite Insights with Carlos Imani. We're looking to offer an in-depth look at event production industry through the lens of client experiences and joint successes. The podcast will emphasize guest interviews, focusing on client discussing their fields and reflecting on their collaboration with Elite Collective. Again, you're with Elite Insights. Carlos Imani here. I'll see you guys in a few.
Welcome back, everyone, to The Day with Trae. I'm your host, Trae Holiday. Joining me right now is Miss Alicia Crank. What's up, Alicia?
Hey Trae, how you doing?
I'm great. It's so good to have you here.
Yes, I had to bring a pair of my cute glasses out for you.
I love them. I'm loving the little dual nature. I'm
Yes,
feeling it.
certainly.
Well, executive director at
Yes.
City Club, Seattle City Club.
Yeah.
Tell us what that entails. What does the City Club do?
Yeah, we've been around for about 44 years now. It was founded by 8 women in Seattle. That was the answer for like the Rotary clubs during that time, because in the 80s, they didn't allow female members to those service clubs. So that's where it arrived. So now we're still doing the work around civic engagement, civil discourse, bringing people together to be able to do things within their communities, uplift them. And then we also convene debates every other year. So yeah.
Yeah. So this is something that, there's got to be a personal driving force. So I want to hear a little bit about your background
Sure.
to get you into, this amazing position of leadership. What was the driving factor for you personally to engage with the possibility of working for Seattle City Club?
Oh, wow, that's a long story. But to truncate it, back when I was 14 years old, I grew up in Detroit, and I went to this camp called High Scope. And it was an experimental camp at the time where they took 25 urban kids, so Detroit, and 25, rural area kids, so northern Michigan, white kids, to bring them together for a month. And they had to just kind of be in community with one another. And I think for me, 3 of my best friends have come out of that experience. And that really set the tone for me to go, I want to be able to learn more about different people and different cultures and different ways of living. So civic engagement and doing kind of community work like this kind of started from there. So I was in corporate for a long time. Then I've been in tech when I was down in Silicon Valley. And now being up here in Seattle, corporate fundraising for nonprofits as a corporate relation officer. So now doing this work with City Club is a combination of all of those experiences coming together.
Yeah, well, it sounds like it. And, for you to have been sparked at a young age, that also, I'm sure, is a driving force for some of the reasons why y'all are looking to do more youth engagement. Tell us
Absolutely.
more about this wing of Seattle City Club.
Yeah, so next month on April 3rd, we are going to launch our Civically Engaged Youth Council. And it's for those between the ages of 15 and 24. We want to get Gen Z more engaged in how they can function in their communities, how they can help lead politically, civically. But what we're going to do this time around is we're going to have the youth tell us how they want to engage, as opposed to, I think there's other groups that mean very well, but when you're telling them, okay, this is how we as older people want you to engage, you will lose people so quickly.
Yeah.
So this time is really going to be about having them build with us and teaching us in the community how to keep them engaged.
Yeah, no, it's important because I think now there's a lot of information that youth can easily get their hands on.
Absolutely.
And so them being able to drive their levels of engagement in a way that's impactful for them is so key. So I love hearing you say that because too often we design these programs without youth engagement, without a youth voice, because we think we know better. And so I really appreciate that y'all are taking that approach. When you think about some of the things that you're excited for the youth to gain through this experience, tell us a bit about that.
Well, one is that, we're going to put our money where our mouth is. So collectively, the Youth Council leadership team will have a spot on our board of directors at CityClub. So they're going to be involved in some of our higher level decision making, being able to help us figure out what types of programming we should do from a topics perspective, who we should get as speakers for that. So, but this particular year is just getting this launched, number one, and then two, having them be a part of the statewide debates that we're going to do, later this fall. And I do mean statewide, from Spokane to here to down in Vancouver. It's going to be a huge undertaking, but the youth in this state specifically have a great opportunity to make change, because two of the biggest offices in this state don't have an incumbent. So we're going to get a new governor, we're going to get a new attorney general, and the youth vote is going to be really important in figuring out who those next leaders are going to be.
Yeah, well, this is really key. And I mean, when we talk about leadership, Black women in leadership is something that we're going to be really diving into this March.
Yes.
With it being Women's History Month, it's important that we understand there's so many different pathways.
Absolutely.
For Black women in leadership. But, there's also all of these different attacks. And we're seeing it all across the country. Tell us about some things that you really want to impart on folks who may be looking for their pathway into leadership as a young Black woman, and seeing you as a major example. What are some of those tips that you can give them, or maybe advice that was helpful to you along your journey?
One of the things I did back in 2019 is I founded Edmonds International Women's Day. So we just had it this past week, our 6th annual. And I bring that up because we talked about this specifically at the event on March 8th about, what does it take to be a rule breaker and a good troublemaker? And I think about the advice that I received along the way. And one of those pieces of advice was to always own your experience. Whether it's your work experience, where you worked at Target and now you're, doing something on a managerial level, you should still own every single thing that you have done, because it has built you to where you are today. So one leadership tip is to not let someone discount something that you've done in your work life, in your community, in your schools. I think the other one, especially as a Black woman, is acknowledging whatever fears you have about being the first or the only in that space. Acknowledge it, but don't let it rule you. Because here's what I ended up learning, is that when I've stepped into these spaces, and even to this day, when I'm the first and or the only person that looks like me walking into the room and being a decision maker, is, what, if they're going to stare at me anyway, I'm going to tell them what I want them to hear. I'm going to show them what they need to see. So if they're already going to be fixated on you for whatever reason, use that as an opportunity to get your point and your message across.
Oh, I love this. And, for me, as a leader myself, this is something that what you just said resonates with me to the core.
Yeah.
Because no matter where you end up, taking those life lessons along the way, and every position that you've held, I mean, you talked about it. All of the things that you did got you here today.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you discredit one of them, if you try to not give it its, power, you lose some of that. So I loved hearing that.
I ran for office several times locally, up in Edmonds, and even when I was down in the Bay Area. And so when someone says, you weren't successful, and I was like, actually, I was. Every time I ran, people got to know who I was a lot better than they had beforehand. And opportunities presented themselves afterwards. I wouldn't be in the role I was in today if I hadn't gone through running for office those times and learning what it is on that side that makes that process utterly stressful. But to now be on this side of it to say, okay, I know what others are coming through, and I can use my experience to say, here's what you can avoid, here's what you should look out for, here's what you should absolutely do. But in the words of the Vote Run League folks who I adore, run as you are.
Yeah.
Not as what someone tells you you're supposed to be.
Oh, that is so needed in the world of politics, right?
Yes.
Because we have a lot of folks who go along to get along.
Absolutely.
And I love that, what we need really is authentic leadership. So thank you for showing up as an authentic leader at Seattle City Club and for giving those tips to young folks out there looking to find their way. And before I let you go, I hear you're a huge Kraken fan. I had to ask you a bit about that because I heard you and on Han when Chuck was on the stage. Tell us a bit about why you love sports and what is so cool about the Kraken. Why do people need to be going to these games?
Well, I'm gonna tell you, again, growing up in Detroit, when I tell people that I'm a hockey fan and they give me the side eye, I was like, you know what? It was actually a lot easier for us as youth in Detroit to get to a Red Wings game than a Pistons game, basketball or football, because those stadiums were in the suburbs. And Joe Louis Arena, now Little Caesars Arena, literally in the heart of downtown Detroit. So growing up in a big four city that had, hockey, baseball, football, and basketball. Mm-hmm. It was easy to become a sports fan. And then coming here to Seattle now and being, at the beginning of, the campaign to bring a pro hockey team here, I was really impressed with how the Kraken did it differently. I like that they put women and persons of color, in these primary roles, these front-facing, front office roles. So between my fandom in general of the sport, I like a nice little, violent game every once in a while, and then seeing how they're, really redefining who is represented in that sport. That's how I became a Kraken fan, and I have way too many sweaters, jerseys at home for each of them. But it's a great place to be, and honestly, it's a great place to hang out. I met my fellow 32 crew folks, through this fandom, and we've all been able to do business together as part of this fandom. So it really has paid off, and it's been worthy to be a part of that fandom.
Well, I'll say this, I attended, 1 or 2 games, and I just was so impressed with the production value of the game. I think that is something that's not talked about enough, right? Because you think, oh, am I into hockey? I don't know how they're keeping score. I don't know what all the rules are. But the production brought me in so quickly from day one. So I think they're doing a phenomenal job over here. Glad to hear that they got you as a fan and that you are really setting the standard here when it comes to females in leadership and specifically Black females in leadership. Thank you so much for joining me today. Of course, if folks are looking to learn more, figure out how they can contribute to Seattle City Club, please look right there. Let them know how to do so.
So you can go to our website, seattlecity.club.org. That's also the same on all of the social networks. Come learn about what we're doing. We have a great event that we do, Civic Cocktail, every month at the Collective Seattle in South Lake Union. Fun space, great networking space, and come hang out with us.
Right on. Thank you so much, Alicia.
You're
Pure
welcome.
pleasure.
Thank you, love.
Yeah. Y'all, I'm telling you, what a phenomenal Monday. I'm going to wrap up all of this phenomenalness right after this short break. Stay tuned, y'all. You're watching The Day with Trae.
Hello, welcome to Elite Insights with Carlos Imani. We're looking to offer an in-depth look at event production industry through the lens of client experiences and joint successes. The podcast will emphasize guest interviews, focusing on client, discussing their fields, and reflecting on their collaboration with Elite Collective. Again, you're with Elite Insights. Carlos Imani here. I'll see you guys in a few.
Africa Town Plaza is our latest affordable housing development project. It's 126 units of affordable housing over community commercial space.
It's the first time in my career, and I've been doing this for 10 years, that I was able to design for people who look like me.
Africa Town Plaza is a beacon of hope.
Africa Town Plaza is a love letter to the community.
Welcome back, everyone, to The Day with Trae. I'm your host, Trae Holiday. What a magnificent Monday indeed. Huge shout out to my guest, Chuck, my buddy, the managing editor right there at Circling Seattle Sports, right here on Converge Media, and also the executive director of Seattle City Club, Miss Alicia Crank. Huge honor to have them both here today for me and to get our week kicked off throughout this amazing week of guests, y'all. We're going to be continuing that theme that I got to introduce today when it comes to women in leadership. And what does it look like for Black women in leadership? On Women's History Month, this month of March, we want to continue that theme of elevating brilliant women who are paving the way like Alicia is doing. So huge shout out to her for that. And y'all, I'm excited because of course, what they shared is always inspiring. I think about someone like Chuck, who started as a fan, started his podcast, Converge found him. It was a natural synergy, and now he is attending training camps. He is in the box offices. He is doing big things in sports, and it's because he stayed true to it. He continued doing it. The dedication was there. You know, what Alicia shared in terms of her own story growing into leadership, it just showcases that once you know something and you continue to do it, from 14, she realized, hey, I actually enjoy the civic process. Let me figure out how I can do it over here. Let me figure out another layer of leadership here to bring her to where she is today as the executive director of Seattle City Club. So no matter what it is that you are interested in or that your talent is in, there is a way for you to be inspired, to build, to be diligent, to continue on and to press on so that you too can be a part of the solution, as my guests are and as they've shown you here today. Y'all, I'm excited because you know you're back with me tomorrow. And until then, at 11 a.m., y'all, peace.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.